Good evening, everyone, and welcome to All In on Real Estate Meetup. I'm your host, Aaron Goins. I started this meetup because when I was in the Air Force, no one in my circle talked about real estate. They all talked about TSP, debt, saving money, and stocks and bonds. And a lot of times people deploy, you see a lot more Dodge Chargers and pickup trucks on the road instead of appreciating value items like real estate. So I started a meetup for educational platforms so people can understand real estate and build generational wealth for them and their families. So I'm really happy to have a fellow Air Force person on here, Mr. Blake Dailey. Thank you so much, sir, for being a guest speaker. And thank you so much, everyone, for attending.
Yeah,
So,
thanks for having me on. It's good to be here.
sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. So we're gonna get right to it. Um, Blake, can you please introduce yourself to everybody and just tell them, what's your story?
Yeah, I'm Blake Dailey. I'm in Panama City, like Greg and I were talking about beforehand. Real estate investor, active duty Air Force officer. I'm in contracting and started investing in real estate when I got here as my first duty assignment and really fell in love with the process, with the deal hunting, with the closing deals, with getting the rental income, all of it. I love it all. And it's just been super fun building my portfolio. Started out with doing burrs and then went to burr and bees, which I was burring and then renting with Airbnb. So cash flow is a lot higher. I was able to make some big moves really quick because of that. Now I got 85 units and trying to buy some more.
That's what's up. What's up, man? What's up? So let's just start right away. Why did you get into real estate?
Yeah, for me, it was really, man, I grew up single mom, didn't have a lot. And I knew, and like growing up, we're going through like the Great Recession. My mom lost her job, lost, house, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, I saw that the financial stress we had in my life growing up and didn't really understand it yet, but I just knew that I didn't want that for my family. So I leaned very much towards like entrepreneurship because I wanted to control my destiny and like create things. So business was always appealing to me. And then that was like the path I was taking at the Air Force Academy, studying business, and then read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I was like, man, real estate is what I've been missing this whole time. Like I knew that you could like rent properties and stuff like that, but never really thought about it as like my strategy. And then just dug into it, man, and what it allows you to do with getting passive income. I love that, so that you can really, go out and do what you want to do, be with your family, right? You're not tied to a job. You're not tied to having to trade your time for money. Instead, you have your money work for you. So that whole ideology of Rich Dad Poor Dad really dove me into it because it resonated with what I was already feeling and just ran with it.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, um, what challenges do you have as a military officer with responsibilities of being in the military and also with real estate? Because a lot of times, people don't act like it. People don't know that they can get into real estate while they're still doing in the military. And I think that, just hearing somebody like you who's doing both and have a podcast and really resonate with people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, keeping those two in balance is tough for me, honestly, because I spend just as much time, if not more, on the real estate stuff every week. So, it's weekends, it's evening, it's early mornings. So it all goes together for me. But I think there's a lot of people who get into the military for like that safety and security, the benefits, your healthcare is taken care of. You got with the TRICARE, you have the TSP, right? They kind of set you up to have this safe, easy life, make it to 20 and you're good, right?
Right.
But again, you're tied to that, trading your time for money, which I think if people, being in the military is great. And I love being in the military. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but if you kind of elevate your thinking and say, all right, what's actually possible if I don't just make it to 20? What if I could, have those 20-year goals in 10 years or in 5 years? And investing really allows you to get there faster. And that's what it did for me. So I think, because like the safety and security, people are, maybe don't like take those extra risks that you have to do in real estate. Like any investing is going to be risk. And usually it's risking your time, right? Putting yourself out there and not wanting to, people to have people see you fail, or you feel like a failure yourself because you're not getting deals or whatever. But that's part of it. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I think like a lot of time, those younger people in the Air Force, they go to the easy stuff. Like they get Robinhood on their phone. I know people are talking all day about buying Dogecoin and all this other stuff. I'm like, man, you guys are taking the easy route. That's gambling. I can go and throw dice or freaking, play blackjack and, with big bets do just as good as these guys are doing with these other investing strategies, quote unquote strategies.
Yeah. So did you, okay, how was you taught about real estate? Because like when I was in, no one talked about it. And I said it in my piece all the time, but no one in my circles talked about it. So how did somebody in the Air Force talk to you about real estate, or is something that you already did already?
Yeah, it definitely has not come from, so I'll say this hasn't come from anybody in my squadron. So I'm in a military military real estate mastermind. So it's all military guys and girls that are in this doing different strategies, right? They're flipping, they're wholesaling, they're doing multifamily, they're doing buy and hold, they're doing the burst strategy, short-term rentals, all these different things from people in the military. And a lot of them at the start anyway, were older people that, kind of learned it over time. But now there's like people in that group that are younger and actually doing this too. So I have not heard it really. Like I don't see it in my circles, like, at the Air Force Academy, hardly. I think one other person, now we're doing deals together. He was investing in real estate and looking into it and doing underwriting and stuff like that. But nobody like in my squadron, that's, the unit in the military, if people aren't familiar, nobody's like talking real estate really. And you don't just hear a lot of people, in line to get food, like, oh man, you see, what's the housing market doing, whatever. They're just not thinking about it. They're there to show up, to meet their requirement. And that's not a bad thing, but it's just, I think the vast majority just kind of like skate through and don't plan on what comes next. So I try to have those conversations with my young airmen, like, hey, what are you guys, what are you doing? What's your housing situation? I try to tell them about house hacking because, I don't want every person to take the path that I've taken because I freaking work my butt off, and that's not right for everybody. Everybody doesn't want to be, an active investor, but the passive income that you can get relatively easy with real estate, that's the part I try to tell people, because that can either be the bug that bites you and you just take off running with it, or really set you up financially, because housing is the biggest expense. The military gives you a housing allowance, right? So if you can use your VA loan, so you get housing allowance and you have the VA loan, like the best housing situation ever. If you can go use that VA loan, 0% down, no PMI on your mortgage, and then the military is still paying you. And if you can combine that with a house hack, they're paying you to live for free. So it's like, it's unbeatable. It's like we are set up so good to maybe not all be real estate investors, but to invest in real estate and do well.
And that makes so much sense. I wish, and I'm the woulda, coulda, shoulda guy. I wish that when I was in, that we had ADPI, that we had a lot more information that we have
or
right
even
now.
like, the finance, putting on like how to use your VA loan, like workshop, or even doing whatever it is. Like, hey guys, here's what you can do. It takes a little bit of work. Yeah, you have to call a lender and get a pre-approval. Yes, you have to pick up the phone or email a real estate agent, but that's about it, right? I mean, to go out and find a deal to live in, you don't have to, you don't have to send direct mail like I'm doing. You don't have to cold call, a list of 100 sellers. It's not that hard. So that's what I try to teach people.
Oh, absolutely. Because, I mean, it's no fault anybody. Sometimes you got to find the information, and, but there's not a lot of, there's more information out there, but you still got to find it. Even a young airman come in there, not a lot of people are talking to people saying, hey, jump into this, jump in that. And I might be a little bit wrong with my stats, but I heard that only 12% of all veterans use their VA loan.
It's definitely not enough. I mean, just from what I know and see, it's not enough. Like the military sets you up so well to be, to be in a good financial position. The deployment pay you get, like the hazard pay and everything, when people come back from these deployments, like you're saying, then everybody buys a Dodge Charger. The VA puts a muffler on it and they're cool all of a sudden, right? But how cool would it be if you put that 30 grand into a compound interest account, or purchased a home, like an undervalued home that's going to have equity over time? Like, man, all the framework is there. They just got to go take advantage of it. So that's what I try to help people with when I can, but sometimes they don't listen.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the whole purpose of this meetup for me was as an educational platform so that military and civilians can learn
Yep.
and like I said, build generational wealth. So just one more military question before we get into multifamily. Um, what would you like to see to, because I've talked to somebody on Clubhouse yesterday and they want to have a transition period where they can talk about mobile home parks to people and things like that. But what would you like to see that the military do to let more of airmen, soldiers, Marines,
Mm-hmm.
everybody know about real estate and know about the benefits they have? Because it seemed like everybody's so focused about getting a VA rating, but not talking about the VA loan.
Yeah. Man, that's a really dynamic question. First of all, I already think there's so many good programs, right? Like the Skills Bridge program, which if anybody in here doesn't know, for military transitioning out of the military, going into the civilian workforce, the last 6 months of their whatever their commitment is, their enlistment or the commission. Um, you can do the Skills Bridge program, which allows you to go be an intern in any industry, right? Just with any company that's registered with the Skills Bridge program. And they pay you your full active duty pay while you go intern and learn from another company. So that's a huge benefit, right? You can go get in-depth industry knowledge, from a mentor, whatever it is, and learn, and then have a job set up after, and you're getting paid that whole time. Like that. That's great. And then you have things like Boots to Business, which also helps people transition, if they're not doing Skills Bridge. So you have really good programs. I think they're underutilized. But I think it starts like in your squadron or in your like your base unit. I don't even know what they call it in the your barrack or whatever in the Army. But in the squadron, it's kind of like our base organizational level. And mine's like 55 people. So just having those conversations with the people in the flight, like, I think money is like a taboo thing to talk about, but money and finances is such an important topic of everybody's lives. Like it's the number one cause of divorce. It's the number one cause of, military people having troubles and not being able to reenlist or getting in trouble. It's something that needs to be talked about, from leadership. So that's what I wish people did more of, just like had those discussions. So I think the big programs are there. So I don't think there's anything, like Congress doesn't have to enact a new law or anything, but just having those conversations. This goes with everybody, like this with civilians too, like with your families, like financial education, and just talking about, how to invest, like how to make smart decisions. Like it's not something that's taught really. So people don't know how to go, spend money, and they get it. And that's why some people just live paycheck to paycheck and they work for 40 years of live paycheck to paycheck. It blows my mind.
I totally understand where you're coming from, man. I totally understand. So why did you get into commercial multifamily? What was the purpose of why do that shift?
Yeah. So for me, I started buying, I think I had, at the time, 5 or 6 properties, and they're all like in different locations, like 10, 15, 20 minutes away from each other. And I was doing everything. My wife and I were self-managing. So I'd go be the maintenance guy. I'd go, lease up units. I'd go do everything. And I always knew that like down the road, or at least thought like I wanted to get into commercial multifamily, right? Driving past big apartment complexes or commercial centers, like I was like, I want to own that. That'd be super cool. But like, I don't know how to get there, right? I got to, just buy a house every year, and then I'll buy like a duplex, and then I'll buy, just make my way up. But the more I looked into it, I was like, this is very achievable. Like I'm learning the basics right now. And then I just also saw the inefficiency of having like single family homes all over the place. And that's what led me to just think like, man, I wish if I had all these units in one location, this would be so much easier. And then really started digging into multifamily. I was like, man, you got the economies of scale, the built-in efficiency. If you get a big enough property, you can have the on-site management, on-site leasing office, on-site maintenance, like all that stuff, which we have in our like most recent complex, which is huge for managing and like getting your time back. So now, the asset manager of that property just spends the time each week making sure the property manager is meeting their metrics. So it's not them or me going and doing all these things. So that's what got me into commercial multifamily, was thinking that, having that long-term vision and seeing that like immediate problem and just bridging that gap. I was like, screw it, I'm jumping now because this is where I want to be. So I'm done wasting time on this little stuff.
That's cool right there. That's cool right there. So what are some of the pitfalls and what are some of the positives that you have done so far?
Just in general or multifamily specifically?
Multifamily.
So I think pitfalls, like on these big commercial deals, you're gonna have to raise money, right? Like you're gonna have to syndicate unless you already have the money or have a rich partner or something like that. Rich uncle. So for me, I syndicated and got into raising money, and then when the deal came, we raised all the money for the deal in like 5 days, and then a few people backed out after that, and then we're like, what, 3 or 4 weeks away from the fund's due date, and these people are backing out. I'm like, man, I wish I had more people lined up already. So that's something I would have done like from the get-go, was like tell everybody that I'm doing multifamily, which I did, but I wasn't like creating those conversations enough to go out to build those relationships with potential investors. So that when it came time to actually do the deal, I had enough lined up, like my capital stack was big enough. So I would have started raising earlier and just, being very vocal, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Cause there's a lot of work that went like unnoticed in those first like 10 months before getting the deal. And those could have, created conversation. So I would have done more of that. Other pitfalls, that was one in multifamily space. Yeah, I've hired the wrong contractors too, not on so on my 8 unit right now, I didn't vet my contractor good enough, and this is in a new market. It's an hour and a half away from me, and this guy basically has cost me like 6 weeks at this point on the project, and by the time I get back to flush where I should have been, it'll be 7 weeks, because it'll be next week when I get the architect drawings back. So this is going to be 8 units that are all short-term rentals, and this is going to bring in like several thousand per week. So every week is like that we bust the due date is like thousands that I'm losing of an opportunity cost. So that sucks. But at the same time, like the numbers for the rehab and the refinance are still there because the market's still doing really well. So trying to just, stay with it, stay the course. But that was really frustrating too. So building relationships with investors and contractors, and really just having the team in place to do deals.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I think that a lot of times we see all the glitz and glamour on social media, but there's a lot of hard work in the
You
back.
guys should go check out my YouTube channel, because it's mostly just me talking about shit that I messed up. So I'm like very transparent with my deals, because you're right. You were so right, Aaron. Like people just show, the 100,000 profit, or I just bought my Lamborghini, my first deal ever. I'm so awesome. But that's just not the reality of it, right? There's a lot of pitfalls that you go through. I mean, it's a roller coaster, and you have a lot of lows, a lot of days where I just come in and I'm like venting to my wife. I'm like, holy cow, what are we doing? Should we buy some Dogecoin? I don't know. Should we just invest in Bitcoin and just say, screw it? But no, it's all good. It's part of it.
So one thing is, can you share your YouTube feed after this?
Yeah, I'll throw it in the comments here.
Yeah, appreciate it. So I'm gonna open up questions pretty early for us. I know people probably have a lot of questions for you, but what for anybody who is just starting, and like I said, this audience is people who are both experienced. Even though somebody just came on who's not into real estate but is supporting me, but could be in real estate in the future. What is a big pitch for you? And you know what? I'm gonna ask you a question before that. Let me ask you about your podcast. What is the positives you had with your podcast?
For me, honestly, so far the podcast, like, because I think in COVID, like a lot of podcasts popped up, so it's become a much more competitive and crowded space. Like there's 15 different podcasts about every like sub niche in each niche now. So it's kind of crazy. But the biggest benefit for me so far, because it's kind of been slow growing, but again, it's only like 35 episodes that are out. So I've been doing it for like 7 months. But the biggest perk so far is to be able to talk to some of the guests I've had on. I just had on some absolutely amazing people. I've had on Sterling White, who's got an amazing story. Started out in Indianapolis, not far from where I'm from, and was living in like the projects, and then got into flipping houses and buying single family rentals through just finding the right mentor, and then got into big multifamily. Now he's like got 400 or 500 units. great story and does a lot of work with Bigger Pockets. Had a guy on, Mark Hamilton, who has 21,000 units, like insane, like a several $billion portfolio. Um, so that's just wild to be able to talk to people like that and see the experience that comes down, and just, spending an hour with those people. Like, how else could you just call somebody up that's, I don't know, this for sure, but that guy, for example, probably has a net worth of like a couple $100 million. Like, how do you just call somebody up and say, hey, how can I just talk to you for a little bit? Hey, can I, ask you some questions, kind of pick your brain? Like, that's a bad question to ask somebody, first of all. But if you have a podcast, you have a platform for them to come to speak, to get out to a larger audience, they're like, yeah, because they're going to bring more people into their world by being the expert. And on my podcast, I share that I'm definitely not the expert. It's called the Multifamily Journey Podcast for a reason. It's not like the Multifamily Destination Podcast. I haven't arrived. I'm going through it right now too. So just sharing those tips, and it's been increased my network for sure. Met a lot of people through it, and then the guests too. I think having those guests on is awesome.
That's cool. That's cool right there. And that's one of the reasons why, I had this meetup is to is to have a platform and to talk to people and find out different stories, and then, like I said, educate people as well, so that they can learn. And that's why we try to go over different niches in real estate, not just commercial, but to try to do mostly all different niches in real estate so people can learn. Yeah. One final question before I let my man Ken Hines start us off first. Going back to what I was saying before, what are some of the things that you think that for a new person who just starting off, what are some of the things that you think they should start off with real estate?
Like, what strategies, or just tips in general to get them to start? Tips in general. I think the most, all right. So I'd give this like kind of a two-tier approach. Like, step one is just educate, just simply like get on a podcast, or start reading books, start listening to podcasts, get kind of immersed in the language of the field. Know what cash on cash return is, know what ROI is, like all these different metrics, know what cash flow is. I mean, the amount of people I've seen just even analyzing deals, trying to teach other people, like on YouTube, and they get cash flow wrong. They don't even know what true cash flow is. Like, cash flow is your net, like after all your expenses, because it's not just your rent minus your mortgage, or even your rent minus taxes, insurance. So I see that done all the time. But so educate is huge. Like, and don't overthink it, right? Don't go too deep, and don't get analysis paralysis. And that's part of the second step. So step one is educate. Step two is to take action. Just go, like, pick up a phone, call a lender, get a pre-approval. It is literally so easy. If you have like a credit score, it doesn't have to be a good credit score. You can get pre-approved for a loan. Like, right, you have to have other things in line. It's harder if you're self-employed rather than W-2. But banks want to lend money right now. It's very affluent out there, right? You said it's not 07, 08, or 06 where they're just giving loans to anybody, but it's not that hard. Like, and all you have to do is pick up a phone. So take action, find an agent, start like looking at deals, analyze deals. So you have to know a good deal when you see one. And if you've never analyzed a deal before, how are you going to know a good deal if you see it? You're not. You got to go through the repetition. So educate and taking action are the biggest things for any beginners. Like, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to be able to do it, because so many people get to that point, Aaron, like where they're, they might know their market, but they're just not ready to take that leap. They're talking about it. It's like, go do it. Stop talking about it. Go just dive in. Go, don't rush into a bad deal. But your first deal does not have to be perfect. Like, I went, like on my first big rehab, I went over budget like 25 grand. It's like, looking back now, we were all fine. Like, me and my partner both made money on the deal, but it wasn't fun, at that time to go over budget 25 grand, and you're going to make mistakes. So just take the action.
So one more question before I get to Ken. I just thought about when you were talking beforehand. Capital raiser. Now with you done your first couple deals with it, is it easier now raising capital because you have your platform, because you've already done it before, or is it still a struggle with raising capital?
I think it's definitely easier after doing the first deal and having the proof of concept. I was almost I almost said much easier, but it hasn't become much easier. It has become easier though. But even beforehand, like there was times, depending on like the message I was sending and how I was approaching things, like even before I had the deal, it was at times easy to raise money because you have to go, first of all, to the right people. If you're coming like to a completely cold crowd, people aren't just going to want to give you money. So like find who you already know, find who you went to school with, find people in your old squadron, people from your old jobs, like talk with those people, even people in your current job. Like, hey, what are you doing right now? What do you think about this crazy market? Like, oh, I'm preparing. I'm doing all this and this. I'm educating a lot, studying a lot. I got, maybe bought a house. I'm looking to go buy this 10 unit. What do you think about something like that? Would you ever invest in something like that? And then just present opportunities to people and money comes to you. You have to put it out there. You have to put it out there to get it back. But with that, it definitely became easier after doing the deal, put it on up on, Facebook, whatever, on the YouTube channel, and people got to see the actual deal, walked around it, talked about it. So they saw the actual deal, talked about the actual numbers, the issues with that first capital raise. Like, wish I would have done more. So yeah, I think it gets easier, but it's not a mandatory to have the experience. Like I know many people who have gone out and raised capital and never done a deal and then, done well. So it's just, I think if you're going to raise capital though, like know your stuff beforehand and be competent and know what you would do with the deal. Also see a lot of people raising money for a deal before they have like no purpose or, no business owning and operating real estate because they don't know their stuff yet. But once you do, then yeah, go out and talk to people.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Great nuggets right there. All right, Ken, go start us off, buddy.
Hey, Blake, great info as always. I'm just really curious about this 8 unit that you have. So it's sort of a two-part question. I think you mentioned in one of your posts or your YouTube that it was an old hotel. So did you run into any pushback or feedback from like the local town or zoning about turning it into short-term rentals? And then two, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. For part one, I'll answer that. And the quick answer is yes, but it was not because I'm turning it into short-term rentals. The problems was almost exclusively with the past seller and then the contractor that I hired that did not. If I saw him in person, I'd probably like do Oklahoma drill with him and just tackle him. It's back to my football days. But yeah, so the past seller had a really bad rep, had multiple code violations, did unpermitted work. This was like a true like rent by the hour place. Like the people I saw coming in and out of here were not good. When we did demo, we found like needles, found like dime bags behind the drywall. Like it was bad. So that's why when I walked in there, I was like, all right, we're completely demoing this because I knew the potential based on the location. And I have short-term rentals like in the same kind of demographic, but an hour and a half, this way in Panama City rather than Fort Walton Beach, but the market is very similar. So I knew all the potential was there and it'd be a money maker. But the past seller was just, the city did not like that property whatsoever. So as soon as they saw it, trading and we're doing demo and permits and everything, we're going in, they put this thing under a microscope. So everything had to be done perfectly. Like, normally you can get through some things like, oh, you didn't do this. Okay. Kind of slap on the wrist kind of thing. But this contractor just did not do the right things either. So if I would have got a really good contractor, they could have handled the things with the city, but I had a bad contractor. So the city did even, not only brought a microscope, but out a telescope to look down at this property. Got very, very stringent and then had to go meet with them in person and ended up clearing up a lot of things, firing that contractor, hiring a new one and getting my own architect. So things got better, but yeah, the problem with the city was not because it's short-term rentals, because it is zoned commercial and by the county laws, commercial properties can have short-term rentals.
The second part of that is, since you sort of like repositioning it, did you use bank financing on the original purchase? And then when you refinance, how are you providing documentation? Because on like an 8 unit, I think you're going to commercial loan.
Yep.
Usually, like from what I just did, they care more about the property. And so how do you provide the income documentation and stuff like that for the banks?
Yes, that's a really good question. On the first part of that, curious enough, I was talking bad about this seller because he's a pain, but he actually carried first position on this. So I put 20% down. He carried the rest, and he knew that it was going to be rehab. And he liked the cash flow coming in from the property. That's why he never did anything to it. He just took it all, and I don't know what he does with it, that it was generating. So he wanted to keep monthly payments coming in. So I paid him basically, set it up to where the monthly payment basically was what he was making, and got in for only 20% down, didn't have to get any bank financing or anything like that, and then raise the money for all the repair costs and everything like that. And then on the refinance, what I'm doing there is I had a lender in Panama City who said they were going to lend on it, and they've done they do commercial loans. They're a local portfolio lender. They lend out their own money, and they've done commercial loans on my other short-term rentals here in Panama City. It's like, oh, they'll do this one. I had the confidence going in up front, but then they're like, yeah, we don't want to do any more motel, like hotel properties. We've already met our quota for the year in the first couple months of 2021. So, I mean, very low. They normally don't do them. So what I did is started going out and find new lenders, found one, got a term sheet, and he's actually going to give me a better deal because the amortization is longer. And when I refi this, I'm going to hold on to it. So that's good because my cash flow is going to go up. So what all they need is the appraisal, because if I was doing a straight up purchase, they'd need to see more documents and stuff like that. So basically I'm putting in my loan application with them. Once I get it income producing after like a full 30 days of that, 1 month, I can go to the appraiser and say, hey, here's how this thing's doing now. I can get it appraised because it's commercial property. So it's going to be, value is going to be based on the income. So this will be my first appraisal on a commercial short-term rental. So I think they'll do it off like, how they would like a hotel or motel off the RevPAR, like the revenue per average daily rate. So I think it'll be very similar to that. So I don't think I'll have a problem. But they're basically going to lend off that appraised value. And it'll be a commercial loan as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep. What else we got?
Come on, Greg. Come on.
Actually, Blake, I do have a question though. So for your properties, you say you have 85?
Yeah, 85 units.
25 units. Are they dispersed throughout the county, the state, or is it?
Yeah. So that, again, that sounds like a lot, but most of those are like a big chunk is 66 of them. That's all one commercial building. The syndication I was talking about, that's in Greensboro, North Carolina. I did that with partners, right? So that's not all me. And then the other 20 are just me. Well, I have a partner on a duplex, but the other 20 are just me, or 19, I guess. Yeah, so most are in Panama City, and the 8 unit is in Fort Walton Beach, which is like an hour and a half west.
Awesome. So for the 66 unit, for the property management, was there any negotiation on the rates, on the charge, or is it just the going rate for the locality, etc.?
Yeah, it's mostly going rate. So that's something I've never liked really doing, is negotiating down a property manager unless they're just really high. Like short-term rentals, I'll negotiate a little bit because I know I can get a bulk discount and things like that. And they're making higher revenue off my short-term rentals. But with long-term property management, I mean, that's a low margin business, right? You got to have volume to make that work. So less negotiating power there, but it's basically the going rate. So we have on-site leasing staff, property manager there, and the on-site maintenance. So both of those people get paid kind of like the hourly rate. And then we pay the fee to the management company, right? So we pay basically their employees to cover that overhead and everything, and to cover their time being there, and then have the percentage to the actual company. So which it's lower. I think it's like 5, maybe 4 or 5%. And then the payroll expenses. So that's typically what you'll see on like larger commercial multifamily deals, is you'll have depending on the size of the deal, anywhere from like 3 to 7%. Like a smaller, like 40, 50 unit will be probably like that 7%. And then your 100 plus, 150 plus is going to be like your 3%. So it's going to fall within that range. And then you'll have on-site staff, and you'll pay their payroll plus the percentage fee.
So that'll be the admin fee for. the staff?
Well, it's not the admin fee. It's like their payroll. So it's like, they're
Okay.
getting paid by the property. So their expense, the expense for their time is coming out of the property, plus the property manager, everything they do, screening tenants, blah, blah, blah. And then having those employees, they're basically the property manager's employees, but you're paying them out of the property.
Cool.
What else? Questions on short-term rentals or rehabs or multifamily? And we talked a lot about military investments.
Here's a question, and which is more unique to military, and given that you are still active duty and you're doing this, and I would imagine you are pretty red hot on somebody's list to PCS soon. So how do you foresee being able to actually do that with the smaller units? The large unit in Greensboro is one thing. The smaller units that are nearer to where you are currently stationed are another thing. So how do you foresee yourself being able to manage those in order to be supplanted somewhere else, stateside or even overseas?
Yeah, he's talking about when I PCS, which is permanent change of station, which is when the military moves me bases. So I'm here for another year. So next summer will be my PCS date. So anywhere from May to August timeframe. I think the military could always change their minds and do something different, but that's the normal timeframe. And so the 66 unit is going to take care of itself because it's got the people on staff. And then I have a property manager here for my short-term rental units. My wife and I did it for a while. And then once we got up to 7, we handed those off. And then we have a long-term property manager for our long-term units as well that are here. So for the 8 unit, we're actually building out our own property management system. And I don't want to call it a property management company because it's just going to be us doing it. Like I'm going to hire out the cleaners, the handyman, and everything for that property to run itself, and an assistant to manage those people. And I just manage the one assistant. So it'll be 1 point for me, or 1 point of contact. So I'm going to continue to do that and just build out the systems so that it doesn't matter where I'm at. With short-term rentals, it's very automated. You can do 99% of it from your phone. So that's what I plan on doing. Just set it up like I can set it up now while I'm here, while I can, to remove myself from it, so that I can, be anywhere in the country and have my, properties run the same. That's a whole nother discussion of how to set up those systems, but that's what I'm working on now.
So Ken asked, what platform are you using to advertise your new 8 unit? Are you doing Airbnb, VRBO?
So it'll be across all those. So I'll have a channel manager, think like an IGMS or Guesty or YouPorter, softwares like that pull all your listings off the different sites and pull them to one place where you manage them from. So any change you make on this center listing, it goes out to all the others. And then you have one calendar for all these. You have one inbox for all these, and then you have automated messages and things like that. So that's one of the systems, one of the softwares I'm going to put in place to help manage everything. So I'm going to put it there and it'll disperse it out everywhere. So Airbnb has been the main one though. So that's where I started at. That's where I built a lot of my experience, but they're also similar now. And yeah, most people do book through Airbnb, but they're going to be out on all the other sites to increase the chances of getting bookings.
So why did you get into Airbnb? What was your attraction to Airbnb?
Yeah. So actually the first property I ever bought got me into Airbnb. And what I was doing, I was looking when I knew I was coming to Panama City, I was going to buy, the duplex or the fourplex. And we actually put in some offers on some fourplexes because babe, this would be perfect, right? We got 3 tenants. We're going to make money to live for free. We're going to learn how to landlord. We're going to do everything on this property that we own. And she hated the idea of this, right? She did not want to live next to her tenants, and I can't blame her. But I eventually got her, eventually convinced her of that, and then put in these offers. They didn't work out. And then before I got here, I took a trip to Italy. So somewhere in Italy, I saw this house online because I was just looking, on the trains or whatever, looking at properties. I already had an agent here, and it had a attached guest suite, like a mother-in-law suite. It was completely separated, locked off, had a kitchenette, had its own separate bedroom area, had its own bathroom, had its own entrance. And I was like, oh, shoot, I noticed it because the extra kitchen, just like scrolling through pictures, because it was a nice looking house. And like, it just was very undersold, right, of what this unit could be. And I was looking at it, I was like, man, there's our extra rentable unit. Because, well, and then first, I didn't think after looking at it that the long-term rental rate would cover our mortgage. Like, we'd still have to come out of pocket. And I really didn't want to do that. I wanted to, my whole goal was to offset our mortgage, to pocket our housing allowance so that we could save that up and buy more. And then I got to thinking, Nicole and I, my wife, like all through college, we would stay in Airbnbs when she would come out to see me in Colorado. And like, we'd go to Denver and Colorado Springs, and, we're always like the budget conscious travelers. So we'd stay in these Airbnb units, like people's basements and people's guest houses, and people's spare bedrooms, things like that. And I was like, this would be perfect for that, because we're so close to the beach. We're so close to the base. Like, people are coming to this area. We have this unit we can rent out on Airbnb. And we actually ended up making, I think, $100 per month to live for free, renting that unit using that strategy. And then from there, I wanted more, because I saw it. I saw the power of it. We found another house with a detached unit this time, and it had a pool. So we bought that. We bought that out of pre-foreclosure, like the week before they were going to get foreclosed on. Raised private money for the first private money deal I did. We bird that. That was our first BRRRR and B, and then rented out both units on Airbnb, and kind of the rest is history. I saw what the money a full property like that was bringing in. I was like, oh man, we got to do this again.
So advice then. What's your advice for somebody who hears what you had to say and now like, oh man, he can do it, I can do it. What is your advice for somebody who might want to try to do Airbnb?
I think educate and take action. You got to learn the strategy. So I spent like the rest of my time in Italy. Like, I put that offer in and then found out later on that we got it. So I spent that time learning Airbnb, like how I was going to list this thing, read a book on how to, do Airbnb or whatever, and then took action. When we got back to the States, we ended up buying the house a couple of weeks later, and then went right to, getting on Facebook Marketplace, buying furniture and setting this thing up. I took pictures with my iPhone for the first time. So tip for doing Airbnb, like, definitely get professional photos. Your bookings are going to way up. But yeah, so the tips, that's my biggest tip, is educate and take action. So you got to know your market. Obviously, you can look at, there's online data sources like AirDNA, AIRDNA.com. You can go look up Airbnb and VRBO rental data. It aggregates all of their booking information, so you can see what's happening in your market. So yeah, I think that would be the biggest things right there. Know your market and then learn it and go after it.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for him? April, you got any questions for me like that? Kenny? Anybody?
I got one quick question, Aaron.
Of course. Go ahead, my friend.
So like, when you for your Airbnbs, like we managed one for somebody, but how do you underwrite? I don't know if I missed that, I jumped in, but how do you underwrite to determine whether a property is I know you can do like the AirDNA, but what do you particularly see as far as like what number are you looking for when you're underwriting the deal for Airbnb?
Yeah. So when I underwrite my deals, like, the first thing I want to make sure it cash flows as a long-term rental. So all my Airbnbs would cash flow as long-term rental. So I know I have that downside protection, whatever happens. COVID, COVID part 2 or whatever, virus strain 2 hits again and they shut it down for a year next time, instead of like 6 weeks or whatever, like they did in Florida last year. If that happened, I could rent long-term and be fine. So that's number one. And then off of that, I look for my Airbnb income to be 3 to 5 times what I would be doing as a long-term rental. So that's how mine operate. Like, I'm taking what would be like a $200 or $300 per month long-term rental into $1,000 a month. So that's what I look at. And then I want to have my my cash on cash return there as well, which typically I like to do the BRRRR and B. So I like to get all my cash back out. But like a minimum would be, because I'm putting furnishing into it, like I want to make my money back in like 2 to 3 years, which is very, very doable if you left your money in it or whatever. And then because the cash flow is so much higher. So to underwrite them, you're gonna it's important to know that you're paying all the utilities, you're paying the lawn care, you're paying the Wi-Fi, if you have DirecTV, you're paying all of that. So you really have to you have to account for every single one of your expenses to actually see what you'd cash flow. So that's really important. So that's how I underwrite them. I start out with AirDNA because I get really good data from there. And then AirDNA is a paid service. So if you guys don't want to do that or don't have it, you can just go to Airbnb, like the site, and type in your area. If you're looking at a property at 123 Main Street, put your map over that area and look for similar listings. And if yours is like a 3-bed, 2-bath, filter for 3-bed, 2 baths, right? And then see what other homes like yours are renting for per night in that area. And then you can look at the calendars on several of the listings. So the typical rule is that you want about 70% occupancy at any given time for the next 30 days. So you want to see a lot of that calendar booked up. So see what other people are doing, see how much of each calendar is booked up. If you're in a high demand market, you might see that, 25 out of the next 30 days on multiple calendars are booked. So that's where you get a rough estimate for your occupancy rate after you get an idea for your nightly rental rate. So you're going to take that and multiply, take your nightly rental times your occupancy rate. Well, your nightly rental times the 30 days times your occupancy rate to get what you're going to bring in each month, and then take out all of those expenses, taxes, insurance, mortgage, lawn care, everything, and then get your cash flow number. And then to kind of give you an idea, to get your return, like on a 1-bedroom place, I usually spend about $3,000 to furnish it. So that's going to add to your costs right there. If you got to do renovations, you're going to have to add on the furnishing costs. So don't forget that. So that's kind of the basics of how I underwrite.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Bud, I know you got a question, man. I know you got a question, Bud. Oh, okay. Let me see. Okay. Bud asks, how does your PM run your daily, weekly, weekend maintenance, or do you have that contracted?
So you mean on the short-term rental side?
Yes, you said.
Yep. So on the short-term rental side, they handle all the maintenance. They have a W-2 like handyman contractor, whatever, that does a lot of the stuff, and they've had to do some stuff so far. And then this property manager is also proactive and has established relationships with another local contracting firm. They do like a maintenance plan. It's like, I forget how much it is per unit per month. I think it's like $10 or $20 per unit per month, but they'll go in and make like quarterly checks. They'll do, change out all the air filters, test several different things. And if something's broken, they'll give like a big discount because, you only have to do maintenance so often with the preventative measures they're doing. So the idea is there that lowers maintenance costs over time, but the PM does all that. They have W-2 cleaners. So they're coming in, handling every turn, getting it, rent ready. And that's how we have it set up. And she does 20% of gross revenue. And then for me, because I put all my listings with her, I think I'm at 17% for the first year. So she gave me a discount for that first year. But typically it's going to be like 20 to 25%. So I'm doing good in that category. Erickson said, coin it Burr and B. I know, I need to like trademark that or something. When some people say it, they say Burr B&B. And I don't know if I want to go off the B&B thing, but I think when people think of it, they hear Burr B&B. It's like more intuitive. So I'm kind of in Greg's boat. I don't know what to officially name it, the Burr and B or the Burr B&B. Got any more questions?
So, have you thought about, what's my man's name? Have you tried to put it into a military Airbnb as well? I can't believe I forgot his name, but it's a military one for Airbnbs. That maybe you can look into as well for military
website.
Yes.
I don't know.
At
It, Mark.
ease, at ease, at ease.
At ease. No, I haven't heard of it.
Look up at
Send me.
ease.
Is it at ease.com? I'll check it out.
Yeah, look up at ease. Yeah, that's a really good
You know, they also have them for travel nurses. Hi, Blake. Nice. I jumped in late, so I'm just
Hey,
kind
what's
of,
up, April?
I'm just hopping in. But they have a travel nursing website also where it strictly rents.
Yeah, I have looked in that, especially at the beginning of COVID. I was like, anything I can do to get my calendar booked. And then thankfully, like Governor DeSantis was like, open it back up in like mid-April or late April or whatever it was last year. So that helped out. But yeah, I think rental nursing is another great strategy too to fill your short-term rental units. Like, because you just, the more places you can get your listing, the higher your occupancy is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing I was told is that for the short-term rentals for nurses for business professionals compared to Airbnbs, that they're not paying a hotel tax, and you're not considered as a hotel in certain locations. And so it might
I know
be
for mine, I gotta
beneficial.
pay a bed tax, Florida bed tax, and then the county,
11%,
at least Bay County has 1%. So, but mine actually fall. It's funny. All of mine in Bay County actually fall outside of like the lines of having to pay that tax. But this one in Fort Walton Beach is I gotta pay the 5% tax. But yeah, you account for that up front. The cash flow is still high enough to do okay.
Daryl, I didn't know you was the Godfather, Daryl. Oh man. So anybody has any more questions for Blake? I mean, this has been awesome, man. I know you dropped a lot of jewels, man. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully somebody got something out of it. If not, I'll put my email in here. You guys can shoot me a message later.
Go ahead, Claudia.
I have a question. My name is Claudia, and I have a question about your multifamily properties. So when you have a property that's like, needs a lot of work, and you're working with your contractor, and you get the scope of work, and you get like the whole list of things that need to be done, like how do you approach that? Do you work very closely with the contractor? How do you decide like where to start? What projects to do first, or I mean, it's like a really general question, but
Is this for like maintenance or is this for like a full-on renovation?
Full on renovation, like a property that's like really needs a lot of work and like full blown renovation.
Yeah, that's a really good. What size is the property?
It's 6 units, and like the previous owner has been just raking in the cash flow, but he has not like updated or.
Yeah, he's just taking all the money out and not.
And the units need a lot of work.
I hate people like that. Honestly,
yes, it's like a slumlord, and I'm like,
but yeah, I think the best thing would do, man, there's different ways you can do it, right? You could kick everybody out and do it all at once. You could go in there and just fix what they need, or do slide upgrades one unit at a time, and as leases come due. But I'll just say in general, like if you're going to do a renovation, you walk it with your contractor. Well, what I would do first is like the very first step is you walk it yourself and just take notes of, each unit, what needs done, right? This one needs, new cabinets or new cabinet fronts, new countertops, new flooring and paint. All right. That's unit 1. Unit 2 is this and this and this, right? And you write out your scope of work of what you've identified. And then you walk it with a contractor and, see if you missed anything, he catches something else, get an inspection in that time to see if, you got to do plumbing or roofs or electrical or things like that. And then give that scope of work to your contractor. Don't put your prices, your guesstimates, or because they're going to wind up being that or higher. So just give them the scope, just what needs done, and then tell them to bid off of that. So then they're going to take your line items and they're going to, get line item pricing. So flooring should have like a price for that. Plumbing should have a price for that. If you just get a total, that doesn't give you a lot of information, because they could be giving you $10 a square foot on flooring and $1, per square foot of paint, which it just doesn't work out that way. So you need to make sure the pricing is right on each item, and then, just go through it. Hey, all right, if the price is good, be like, all right, fine, let's do this. If not, then you can adjust it by line item. Or if it's just altogether too expensive and you're getting like several bids that are all the same way, maybe, okay, you can't do countertops this go around. You gotta wait till the unit turns or something like that, and then you can adjust your own plan.
I'm working with a contractor, and we worked the property like together, and he already gave me like the scope of work, and it's like a really long list. And I'm just working with him.
I would say
Um,
did you give him the scope of work or did he give you the scope of work?
Oh, he provided. He gave it to me. Well, I actually
All right. I
verified
think
it.
you as the property owner, you own that. You own that scope of work. So you need to give it to him. You need to say, hey, this is what needs done. This is what we're going to do. Because if you let him do it, it's probably going to be, all right, we're going to come in and do everything, right? He's incentivized to make that the most profitable for him and his business. But that's where you got to hold him accountable. Here's what's done. Here's what needs done. Here's the scope of work. Bid off of this. And then,
I mean, it's a lot of stuff. So we focus on the big ticket items, and then I confirm that I have the book by Base Cut, it's estimate on rehabs, and I've been going through the book and trying to compare what we talked about. But my
well, the
other
book on
guy
estimating rehab costs is going to be different, right? Because you'd have to be in Jay Scott's market at the time he wrote that book for the pricing to make sense. Because you're probably in a different market, and that book was written years ago, so it's going to be different, right? So you can't. That's a great guideline. I love that book, and I recommend that to anybody looking to flip or rehab or whatever. But the accompanying one with the breakout of the pricing and like the breakdown or the pricing, that's going to differ. Like that's what you should present your contractor though. Is like, hey, here's the flooring. This is what kind of flooring. But let him give the market price because it's going to change, I mean, even the kind of flooring is going to change the pricing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. I do government contracting. And this is the same thing we do there too. So you think I would have picked a better contractor on the 8 unit because I'm in government contracting, but I did not. But
yeah,
at least I make a couple works. What's up?
Blake, I got a question for you. Nice to meet you. So you were talking about the 8 unit and the financing part was sounded like a stated income loan. Is that where you got with just the appraisal?
Do you mean when I go to refinance it?
Yeah, you mentioned they just asked for an appraisal with, what was that? No app filled out?
No, I'm going to have to do my application and make sure, they're going to make sure that I'm worthy to get the loan. But it's a commercial loan. So they're underwriting the property. And it's based on that appraisal. So yes to both. It'll have they're going to look at me, but it's going to be a property-based loan.
And this was that for your refi, right?
This will be for the refi. Yeah. This will be like in a month and a half from now. Well, probably July, because in a month and a half, we'll get it rented. Because like I said, 6 weeks behind, but yeah.
Okay. Very good. Thanks a lot.
Yep. All right, guys, nothing else. I got to jump off here, but thanks for letting me come and be part of the meetup, Aaron. This is awesome. Hopefully you guys got some good things. I put my my email, podcast, and YouTube channel in there. If you guys want to go see more about the 8 unit I talked about, that contractor and what he did, about the rehab plan, about the purchase, all that stuff. So that stuff's in there. Maybe it's entertaining, maybe it's not. I don't know. Hopefully it is. But yeah, shoot me guys an email if you got any questions that come up. But appreciate you having me on, Aaron.
Yeah, man.
One thing, Robert. One thing right before you leave. On Tuesday, I gave somebody your information. She's interested in investing in Panama City. I think her name is Sharon, so she might be hitting you up. Yeah, so she's interested in commercial multifamily in Panama City. So I'll give her your information.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Yeah. Send her my way. I'd love to help if I can, or, at least point her in the direction of somebody that could, if she's wanting to do something else. But hey, real quick before I go, everybody's got to turn on their camera and got to give your craziest I love real estate face. And I'm going to take a picture and we'll put it out for everybody. Oh, Michael, the I love real estate face. That's awesome. All right, everybody on here. All right. 3, 2, 1. Got it. Guys are a bunch of rock stars. Thanks again for having me on.
Thank you, man. And man, you're welcome anytime to come back, man. And I think we got to talk in the future, man. A couple of things I want to throw back to you too.
Yeah, I'd love to. Hopefully by next time I come on, the 8 unit is up and running, and I can share how the refi actually went, and it'll be cash flow. That'll make me feel much better.
Hey, man. Thank you so much, man.
Yep. See y'all. Have a good evening.
All right. So if you guys came on late or want to see the replay, this will go up on my YouTube page probably like an hour after the after party. So You guys want to see all the good nuggets that he dropped right there. So we're gonna go to roll call, and then we'll go to the breakout rooms real quick. So if you guys don't know, after party's always here, bud. Come on now, you already know we're gonna go as long as anybody wants to for after party. This is the after party on Thursday nights. All right, so let's go to roll call real quick. Roll call is when I just let especially newer investors know about different real estate groups they can join. Let's start with the military, ADPI. I just talked to the ADPI people this week. This great information. I wish the ADPI was when I was in, but it's just great information. Podcast by Mike Foster, Kevin Brenner. They have a multi-family course. They have a single family course. So if you guys want information, please go to my website or just go to adpi.com. White Feathers, Greg Narrow and those guys, and Greg Narrow and I forgot the other guy, but they're all part of White Feathers, another military affiliate real estate group. Please go to their website, whitefeathers.com. Seven Figure Flipping with Bill Allen, great group. Really enjoyed it. Bill just had his REI Live, Veterans REI Live conference. It was for free this past Saturday. If you guys want to see the replay, you can pay $100 to one of his funds, one of his charities, and you will get a recording of the whole REI Live. It was about, I think, 10 hours of recording of guest speakers, including Megan Greathouse, who was a speaker on here. So a lot of great information on there. And finally, the War Room Mastermind Group, which myself, Claudia, Bud, and others are part of. It's $50 a month, and it's great information for veterans and military to join, hold each other accountable. I really enjoy. I really love my squad, Dark Blue Squad, and so I don't know about Brown Squad, but sorry. Okay, so let's go to civilians, Bigger Pockets. Biggest real estate forum in the world. So much information, so much. I would recommend anybody to join Bigger Pockets to start an off group. I don't care if you're military or civilian. Join biggerpockets.com. A lot of great information. Jamal King's Make Real Estate Real. Another great organization. $1,000 course, and you learn everything from A to Z about real estate. With Jamal King makes real estate real. And then finally, Ring, wholesale real estate investment group that I'm a part of. We have chapters in, Washington State, California, New York City, Raleigh, North Carolina, St. Louis, Fayetteville, North Carolina, and it's still growing. So if you want information about Ring, please contact me. Okay, so that is enough with the roll call. I'm gonna stop recording.